There's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Cancelled, the podcast where we re-examine a person, or perhaps even a film, that have committed crimes. Not real crimes, silly crimes. And then we assign them charges and sentences so we can finally move on with our lives. My name is Jessie Stevens and I'm joined by
Claire Stevens.
And before we start, we have been sharing lazy girl anecdotes. Claire, do you have any to bring to the table today?
Yeah, look, I think an important lazy girl subcategory has become lazy girl pets.
Yes.
And we had a beautiful message from Mairead, who said, "I've been meaning to write this message for forever." That's how all
Every
lazy
single
girl
one
messages
starts.
start.
Sometimes we get half a message, it's fine.
But my dog Paddington is the ultimate lazy girl.
Great name.
He doesn't like to wake up before 11 a.m. He refuses to jump onto the bed, couch or car despite being fully capable unless you give him a leg up and physically hoist him. He also won't fetch a ball unless you cheer loudly for him while he does it. My mum says he needs the admiration. When you tell him, let's go for a walk, he needs to stretch, get a drink of water and eat a snack before he's ready to go. He's also too lazy to eat his food, so he will just do little nibbles throughout the day.
Oh, Paddington. Hard relate.
I think you're our mascot.
You're our mascot,
Yeah.
you lazy boy.
And actually, I'd like to say my dog is a lazy. I mean, he's pushing 70.
Yeah.
My dog. But he is also a very lazy boy. One time, my dog did go into surgery, and when we went to pick him up, the vet said, he's doing great. He's got a hilarious bandage on his leg.
looked
It'll
like a
make you
bee.
giggle. He looks
Yeah.
like a giant bumblebee. And then she said, but he is only eating from the palm of my hand. And I said, that's not a thing that he ever does. And he's never done it since. He just went,
could get away
he
with
just
it.
went, hey, lady, I take the piss with you.
Yeah.
Oh, Caesar, come on.
Caesar
now.
crown. Look, today we are looking at the 2001 romantic comedy starring Renee Zellweger, Hugh Grant, friend of the Cancelled Courtroom, and Colin Firth, Bridget Jones's Diary.
Here she is. How's your love life?
How's your love life? Why is it there are so many unmarried women in their 30s these days, Bridget?
Suppose it doesn't help that underneath our clothes our entire bodies are covered in scales.
The film was a box office success and it was met with critical acclaim. It was nominated for a bunch of BAFTAs and it thrust Zellweger well into the spotlight. My structure today is as follows. The beginning of the film all the way to the end of the film.
Wow. See, you're actually in charge of bringing the structure today. And
Yeah.
I did check a few times and say, have you got a
Are
structure
you right?
that you're competent with? Yeah, no, it's all
I
good.
got it.
Do we need some other context about Bridget Jones?
Backseat driving.
Because,
Okay, what do you want to say?
Well, I wanted to say that it's based on Helen Fielding's book of the same name.
yeah.
And
Feels
that,
relevant.
that it was a reinterpretation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And what I really liked,
Darcy.
Helen,
Wait, is Darcy in Pride and Prejudice?
yes, good one.
Okay, is Colin Firth the only man that can have
Yes.
anything to do
No,
with Pride and Prejudice?
But yes.
Okay.
Because I love that Helen Fielding said that when she was writing Bridget Jones, she was watching the BBC series of Pride and Prejudice, which everybody knows is the best version of Pride and Prejudice, and her story just became a
Pride and
rip-off.
Prejudice.
And her literal words were like, Jane Austen won't care, she's dead. And I'm like, that's
vibe.
quite lazy girl.
Lazy girl.
She's a lazy
girl.
Yeah.
Like, you were writing a book and then you just stole the idea from Jane Austen, who can't sue you in that she is dead.
We've all been there. We've written
Yeah.
something we thought was great.
And then we went, it's a bit Jane Austen.
Yeah.
But I'll acknowledge it, and now it's art.
Yes.
And that's what happened. And I would also like to acknowledge that one of the writers on the film Bridget Jones's Diary was Richard Curtis, who also wrote Love Actually.
If you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling you'll find that love actually is all around.
So he's
and
made...
has a bit of a problem with Hugh Grant, but knows he's great.
yeah. So he has made an appearance in the Cancelled Courtroom before.
Okay, that does actually feel relevant.
Oh, also, just the parameters.
Yep.
Exclusively the movie, exclusively the first movie.
Oh my God. I'm not talking about Bridget Jones's fucking baby or whatever that was. I can't even remember it.
So we're not Bridget Jones the franchise. We're not Bridget Jones the character. We're not Bridget Jones the literary phenomenon. We are Bridget Jones the first
2001 film.
Yeah.
I think I made that clear.
That's it. Okay, good. Just in case anybody wondered why we didn't
Bridget Jones is 32.
Old lady.
That's my first point, is that Bridget Jones is only 32 years old.
Put her in a geriatric unit.
And she is sitting there mourning her youth, her fertility, her love life, all the things she could possibly have had if it weren't for the fact she was 32.
It all began on New Year's Day in my 32nd year of being single. Unless something changed soon, I was going to live a life where my major relationship was with a bottle of wine. And I'd finally die fat and alone and be found 3 weeks later half-eaten by Alsatians.
In my head, Bridget Jones was 61. Like, she couldn't have children anymore. She was this sob story. Bridget also has an apartment in the middle of London with stairs.
On her own.
On her own. With a working kitchen.
Little balcony area.
With a coat rack. Bridget Jones is fucking rolling in it.
How does she have that apartment?
Well,
given
she's
that
an assistant in a publishing house.
Yeah. She doesn't do much at work, does she?
No.
Except get harassed, which we'll get to.
Yes, we'll definitely get to. Look, we also wonder why Renee Zellweger, the person, got what did appear to be an eating disorder after this movie. I rewatched this. I no longer wonder that.
Oh, okay.
Because she spoke to the New York Times and Zellweger said that when she was putting on weight, because she had to be chubby, she was going to refer to her chubby thighs.
And she couldn't not
her
be
chubby face. She said, oh, it wouldn't be funny if I wasn't chubby. Bitch, you're a 10, size 10.
Yeah.
She is a completely, I would say average size, but I think she's smaller than an average size person. And I've heard people say that and I've been like, yeah. And then I watched it and I was like, shit, she's skinny.
The bit where she's running around in her undies in the singlet.
Oh my
and I was
God.
like, where's the joke? It's not funny.
It's not funny.
It's not funny.
So what did she eat to put on 13 kilos, which she had to do for this film? She'd have an omelette with cheese and sauce for breakfast, with a fatty yogurt, and then a fruit salad with a topping, and juice and coffee and cream with a bagel with butter, and a few hours later, a chocolate shake with weight gain powder in it.
That sounds too healthy.
It's not enough. If I had to put on a lot of weight in a short period of time, knowing where to start wouldn't be my issue. Knowing where to stop would be my issue.
Great point.
But I'll tell you what I'm not eating if I'm bulking is a fruit salad.
No, wasted.
And a yogurt. This is what I eat most days and consider healthy. All right, so let's start with her meeting Colin first.
Well, can we start with the first 2 minutes of the movie?
All right, yeah.
Because I watched it and I made a few faces and then I went, how long has this film been going for? 1 minute, 57 seconds.
Okay.
And do you want to know what I've heard already?
Yeah.
As a viewer?
Yes.
Okay. The following comments have been made out loud.
Yep.
1. Mark Darcy, a family friend, although that's unclear, he could be a cousin because I don't understand the relationship.
The relationship,
there.
that's true. Actually, they could be cousins. That's true.
He is divorced.
That's a better movie.
He really adds some tension.
Yeah.
He is divorced from a Japanese woman, described as
He's divorced, apparently. His wife was Japanese. Very cruel race.
that
was
cruel,
fucked.
raced woman.
Yeah.
That comment gets made. We're not even 2 minutes into the film. Then Bridget gets told by her mother.
Never get a boyfriend if you look like you've wandered out of Auschwitz. Now run upstairs, laid out something lovely on your bed.
That's in the first 2 minutes. And then she's got to put some different clothes on. And I went, that's a lot.
That's a lot for 2 minutes.
It's a lot for 2 minutes.
It's a lot for a film, but it's a lot for 2 minutes.
It's a lot of
And of course,
problematic.
she meets Mark Darcy and he is rude. He's just a really rude person to her.
Mother, I do not need a blind date, particularly not with some verbally incontinent spinster who smokes like a chimney, drinks like a fish, and dresses like her mother.
And I just think what she's been through in the last 10 minutes. She's been shamed by her mother, a literal man who I think is Uncle Jeff, but isn't Uncle Jeff. And why does everyone have an uncle who's just a predator?
Come on, then.
Actually, not my uncle. Someone who insists I call him uncle while he gropes my ass and asks me the question dreaded by all singletons.
So, how's your love life?
Like, he's not related.
It's a comic relief. Every time he pops up, the audience is like, oh, Uncle Jeff. And it's like,
no, he's
get your mitts off her.
He's being predatory.
Yeah.
And he comes up, and apart from just
Sexual
harassing her, he just keeps making TikTok noises about her ovaries.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, TikTok, TikTok. And then she goes up to bloody Mark Darcy and he's like, thank God it's Colin Firth. And he's like, nah, you're boring. Okay, she's having a tough day, actually.
She is. She's having a really tough day. And so after he's really rude to her and she overhears him bitching to his mum, being like, she dresses like her mum, she's the worst and she's clearly an alcoholic. In his defense,
she needs to stop
she's an alcoholic. She goes home and she drinks too much and she smokes too much. And this is in my notes, right? Because I wrote notes as I was watching this. So thank you. Being an alcoholic, and you can quote me on this, being an alcoholic is a separate issue to being single. All right?
Interesting observation.
Okay. So being an alcoholic is over here on my left. Being single is another thing.
Yeah.
That is or isn't an issue depending on what you like. Not a perfect Venn diagram, not causal. All right? And what we see is them go characterization of single, she smokes indoors on her couch. Bridget needs to stop smoking and drinking.
Yeah.
All right? That's actually the central tension of this entire film is we have an alcoholic who's just smoking too much for 2001, I believe. And they make it look like that's all you can do when you're single.
They're like, oh, no. Every woman over 30 has the same set of problems. I don't know if we do.
Yes. Apparently, I read this, that Chardonnay, her drink of choice, sales worldwide plummeted after Bridget Jones because everyone saw it as a bit of a sad lady drink. Okay?
It is a sad lady drink.
Well, I don't know because Mum, she is impartial to a Chardonnay.
But she'd opt for a Sauv Blanc.
She would. And that's what they say, is that a British wine writer came out and he talked to The Independent 10 years later. And he said that until Bridget Jones, Chardonnay was a sexy drink. But after Bridget Jones, people said, not in my bar. If you're a marketing manager, what would you say? Okay, I'm going to sell something that makes people really miserable. Let's call it Chardonnay. Because that was the drink that she had.
Yeah. No, it did make me a bit sad. Do they specify that it's Chardonnay that she's drinking? Okay.
Apparently. Can you retell, just to everyone who maybe hasn't seen the film in a while, how Hugh Grant and Renee Zellweger interact for the first time?
Okay. Well, firstly, it's really important to note that
Hugh Grant's hot.
He's really hot. He's in his prime face-wise, body-wise, also acting-wise.
He's looking good in this.
And it's because
I think this is the hottest he is. He's got a lot of hair.
He's absolutely gorgeous. And he was in the Love Rat era. And so if you've listened to Cancelled about Hugh Grant, you'll know that 5-6 years before this film, he was caught with a sex worker cheating on Liz Hurley. So he had this reputation of being a bad boy, a cheater. But the thing is, he was very hot.
Yeah.
And so everyone said that's actually absolutely, I checked the rule book, absolutely fine.
Absolutely fine.
You'll be getting a lot
He's
of roles
young and hot
for that. So the moment I see his face, I don't care that he's a grumpy man. A grumpy old man at the moment. He is a grumpy man. But I don't mind. I say, you know what? You're beautiful. So he's the editor-in-chief at her work, the publishing company. And I also need to say this. Hugh Grant, there are men who look like Hugh Grant in the publishing/media industries.
Interesting.
What do you make of that?
I think well cast.
Well cast.
I think he's very well cast. His accent.
I believe it.
I believe it. I believe he'd be the boss.
Yeah.
And their relationship seems fine at work. She has a hopeless crush on him.
Mm-hmm.
His office has clear windows.
But then beautiful Daniel man starts sexually harassing Bridget in the workplace.
So what's the message that he sends? He sends a message.
He emails her about what she's wearing.
Yeah. And essentially it says, I mean, this is, I've paraphrased, but your skirt is too short, you slut. Is his pickup line.
And she
in his defense. It's short.
Okay, but you can't. You can't. And it puts her in a very awkward position because if she rebukes him, he has the power here.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, but feels like what the entire reckoning over workplace harassment was about in recent years.
Yeah. What's weird is that he's sexually harassing her while on the phone, but every time she looks at him, he's not typing. And I'm like, Bridget, I think it's a bot. I wouldn't reply.
It's not him.
So he says, your skirt's too short, you slut. And then she eventually goes, oh,
well, no, she sends an email back and you can't tell tone over email.
No.
So even though she is a bit she writes, excuse me, this is very wrong. And you know what he says? P.S. I like your tits in that top.
she actually uses the term sexual harassment as a bit of like sexy foreplay. She's like, sexual harassment. And he's like, your tits look great.
And to that, can we just pause and say,
well said.
Sometimes we need a tut-tut.
We do.
In the council courtroom.
My favourite thing, and this is something about the Times, this is a snapshot of Vogue 1, is how blatantly unscared Hugh Grant is by the term sexual harassment.
Because he says, I'll just fire you. If it doesn't end well, I'll fire you and anyone you tell.
If you utter the word sexual harassment in a workplace today, things have changed. He's rarely followed with your tits look good in that shirt.
No.
He is so unafraid.
This is like a historical text, actually. It's period.
And then what happens is, what I would love to say is, and then what happens is HR gets involved and there's a meeting. No. Sorry, what happens is I get into the lift and they're standing there and she's just like, oh, and she's wearing short skirts because the sexual harassment's really turning her on. And she gets in the lift, kind of cuddles up to him a little bit. And while someone else is there, he does touch her on the bottom, just like dirty uncle, just like her creepy uncle. No HR, is there? Think about it.
Unless it's that Tits McGee guy.
Mr. Fitzherbert, tits pervert more like. Daniel's boss who stares freely at my breasts with no idea who I am or what I do.
Unless it's Mr. Tits.
No, I think he's like the director or something.
No, he's more senior.
Yeah. Because then they have a launch. And this is actually my favourite moment from the whole film is coming up. They have a launch for a book, the best book ever written, the greatest book ever written, I believe. It's
about motorcycles.
Tagline. It's about motorcycles. And Hugh Grant makes some line about, it's bollocks crap. And I'm like, you're the same character in every movie.
I'll watch all of them and give you awards.
Whatever. Anyway, she has to introduce someone at the launch, blah, blah, blah. And she gets there. And I'm kind of starting to roll my eyes. I'm loving it, but I'm rolling my eyes. And I'm like, this is so Bridget Jones. She gets to the launch and there's an author there. And she makes a fool of herself. Do you know who that author is?
It's Salman Rushdie.
Salman Rushdie. Fucking Rushdie.
The cameo by the man who got stabbed in the neck last year was something I never saw coming.
Okay, so he is an incredibly respected American-British Indian novelist who champions free speech. He is an important political, literary, cultural figure. Last year, he was attacked on a stage in New York and he lost an eye and the use of one hand.
Welcome to the launch of Kafka's Motorbike, the greatest book of our time. Obviously, except for your books, Mr. Rushdie, which are also very good.
And it was like
Salman Rushdie.
In this context, he really liked the movie.
Through me.
Yeah.
I was like, you, sir,
are
need
a
better
busy.
agent.
Yeah, you're far too busy for this. You could be writing.
Yes.
Instead, you're on set.
And speaking of writing, Bridget Jones, her writing, I need to talk about this because like in her diary, her sentence structure is really bad. It's like, I'm no longer tragic spinster, but blah, blah, blah. Like, why isn't it a full set? Like, a Word document would give you a squiggly line for that.
No, I have a lot of thoughts about this. There are a lot of books that are written like this, especially in the voice of a woman.
Yeah. She writes in publishing. One might assume that she can put a sentence together. And she's hanging out. She's literally rubbing shoulders with Salman Rushdie and she can't write a sentence.
The lack of sentence structure, full sentences. I can't write in not full sentences. I find it quite upsetting and I do think you're wondering why you're not progressing in your job.
You write like Yoda. You do. Spinster.
For me, one of the most baffling things about this film is that we're meant to think, well, two things. We're meant to think Renee Zellweger is
fat
overweight
and too old.
Neither of which are true. And also, neither of which are bad. So it's like let's attach value judgments to these two things.
But importantly, she has sex with Hugh Grant, right? Actually, let's get to the panties.
Yes, because she makes a great point, which is that it's significantly more likely that you'll have sex if you're wearing ugly undies.
I've
and,
always thought
and
it,
I
yeah.
never, I remember watching this movie years and years and years ago.
Well, we were 11 when it came out.
Yeah.
We didn't really get it.
But I was like, I don't get it. That's what my undies look like.
Yeah.
They're the undies Mum gets me from
They were
Target.
really bad Spanx. I was like, I'm so sad for you that Skims hadn't come out because Kim changed the game.
She did change the game. But you only understand as an adult that the law of
Murphy.
of Murphy's
Law.
is that if you wear ugly undies, you'll have
you're
sex.
getting it.
If you wear hot undies, you won't. And the thing about not is the shame. Because then you go home and you take off your hot undies alone and you think, how embarrassing for me.
And you look in the mirror and you just go, yeah, this is a shameful moment. And so she's got her big undies on. Hugh Grant makes a big deal. First sign that I was going to say first sign he's a dick. The sexual harassment was a real red flag in just with that one. But after they have sex, they're laying in bed next to each other. And Bridget says to him,
That thing you just did is actually illegal in several countries.
Well, that is, of course, the major reason I'm so thrilled to be living in Britain today.
anal?
Yeah, no. I had, is it anal in my notes? And then I had, why is it anal? Because it's got to be anal, right? Unless going down and, oh no, because he then says roll over. She says it's something about
It's
like
the
should we
second
do
time
it
they've had sex,
again?
which is totally fine.
It's just a lot.
It's just a lot for 01, you
Yeah.
know? And still the proximity to Salman Rushdie is too close.
For the anal sex
Yeah.
reference. And that takes me back to a theme that I noticed and would like to continue bringing up, which is Bridget Jones is the British Sex and the City. Think about it. They were trying to be edgy with the sex, so they went anal. The other thing they stole, for plot purposes, Mark Darcy needs to keep popping up at weird moments. Okay? So he comes to the book launch. She's talking to Salman.
There is no narrative when you write something or script writing, whatever. It's like the world needs to make sense. There is no world in which Mark Darcy at that book launch makes any sense.
It doesn't. And the thing is, he
needed to happen for plot purposes.
Yeah.
But we had to suspend belief in terms of.
He keeps popping up. And my thing is, if you saw him this often in the last 5 years, you would know him better and or have fallen in love with him. But for some reason, this world has suddenly become so small that you see him at every family gathering and social gathering.
He's he's a high-powered lawyer. Like, he's not.
He shouldn't be at the motorcycle book launch. But my point there was going to be, did you notice what his partner's name is?
It's Natasha,
It's
isn't it?
Natasha, because
she's the classic Natasha.
this is the British Sex and the City. And every Natasha in every movie looks the same.
They do. And you know what it says? Brunettes have a pole up their ass. And that is the shorthand.
And it's every blonde's insecurity, isn't it? That we go, we're the Carrie and all
Every
you brunettes are the
blonde
Natasha.
feels like a mess.
I think it's about how hard it is to style blonde hair.
And I think it's how dead our hair is. Like, we know it's not shiny. It's
No.
You know what it is? It actually is born from an insecurity about shininess, because every brunette has really shiny hair. Blondes feel bad about it and they harbor a lot of insecurity. So then they go and write movies and TV shows where the brunette comes along
And is
thinking
the villain.
just because she's got flat shoes and an ironed cardigan, she can get the man. Well, no. Okay?
Because messy blondes can do it too.
I need to get to the bunny scene.
Seems unnatural, wrong even, for 60-year-olds to dress up as prostitutes and priests on a Sunday afternoon.
Where are all the other tarts and vicars?
Oh dear, didn't Geoffrey call you? Geoffrey, didn't you telephone Colin and Bridget?
How's my little Bridget? Bop, bop.
Yeah, I have questions about that plot point. But so the theme, tramps and vicars. No, tarts and vicars.
Tarts and vicars.
Was the theme of the garden party.
Correct.
So they've gone to a garden party outside of London.
In the country.
And they're staying there for the weekend.
Yeah. Obviously, Mark's there. Yeah.
Mark and Natasha. And
Bridget
and
brings
Daniel.
along Daniel, who needs to go to work.
to cheat. But anyway.
We'll get to
So
that.
Bridget turns up to the party alone
Yeah.
in a bunny outfit. Now,
She, when it's a tart, not a vicar.
just for clarity, what's the relation between a bunny? Is it meant to be Playboy bunny?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I never got
thought
that.
it was Easter adjacent.
Yeah, me too. I always thought the bunny was
know
related
if I'm wrong.
to that.
This gives way to two of the best comedic moments of the whole film.
Yeah.
The first is when Bridget Jones's dad, he accidentally dressed up to as a vicar, and he says,
I didn't spend as much as Bernard, thank God.
and he looks at Bernard, who's looking shameful in the grass dressed as a pope. That was a really good one. And the other one is when Mark Darcy's mum...
Bridget, there you are. Don't worry, you're not the only one. This is Penny. Geoffrey didn't get in touch with her either.
I'm sorry?
I was just saying, Geoffrey didn't contact you either to tell you that the Tarts and Vickers concept had gone out of the window.
Oh, yes, he did.
I was like, great beats.
Great writing.
Great. Let's get to the discovery of the cheat.
Yeah, I would just like to say that when Daniel leaves before that party to go back to London for urgent New York business
on a Sunday,
he has a bit of a tanty at Bridget because she's like, do you have to leave to cheat on me? And he's like, yeah, I do. And then he goes on this tangent about something New York, something you wouldn't understand, Bridget, something you're a lowly assistant. But also, maybe she wouldn't be just a lowly assistant if her boss stopped sexually harassing her
long enough for her to do her job.
And then she wouldn't have to quit jobs and jump around all the time because he is sabotaging her career trajectory.
Yeah.
With the sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's almost like he sees her as only a sex symbol. And so she ends up going back to his house because she's really sad because of the time she went as a tart tramp to the party where the theme had changed. Who would do such a thing?
We should do that. Host a dress-up party. Everyone turns up. We go.
Tell every second person that, yeah. And then she discovers that there is someone else there.
This is Lara from the New York office. Lara, this is Bridget.
Hey there.
Of course it is Lara. Claire, what colour is Lara's hair?
Brown. But the other thing, I feel like Richard Curtis has a disdain for American sluts. Okay? So I think he's gone, the cheating needs to be from an American because British people...
They're afraid of the American intruder, yes.
So blonde people have insecurities about brunettes. British people have insecurities about
Americans with good teeth.
That's
what
they
do.
So Lara's American.
Yeah, Lara comes in. She's American with her big teeth. And
it's not clear when Bridget walks into the bathroom and discovers Lara. Lara is sitting on the bathtub holding like a folder over her naked body. And the question is, were you working and sexing or just
I think
sexing?
That's the implication.
Okay.
That they were actually doing work. And then she says...
I thought you said she was thin.
That's what Lara says.
Again, it's like looking at Bridget and saying, you didn't tell me she was a lizard. Like, we're being gaslit. I'm like, are we watching the same film?
It's real Love Actually vibes. And I think Richard Curtis goes into writers' rooms. He's like, anyway, so this character's fat and we'll make jokes. And everyone's like, wait.
Who we cast? Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. And he's like, no. It always works. It's
because I've written, apart from being deeply problematic, this is a fantastic narrative.
Yeah.
Because I am hooked at this point.
Oh.
I've also written Colin Firth, clinically depressed. He doesn't smile once in the entire film.
He's getting better towards the end from his clinical depression. But yes, no.
Yeah, no, he's not. He's got kind of a dark rain cloud over him. And then, of course, Bridget decides to leave her job.
So she resigns, and in the saddest moment of the film, she's wearing runners with a 3/4 length skirt in his office. She goes in to resign, and I'm like, I get it. You're no longer a sex symbol. You're taking yourself seriously.
But that doesn't mean we have to wear runners with a 3/4 length skirt.
No, come on now.
There's an in-between.
And she does resign.
And then he tries to stop her, and then they have this whole feminist moment.
Well, I just think you should know that, there are lots of prospects for a person who, perhaps for personal reasons has been slightly overlooked professionally.
Thank you, Daniel. That is very good to know. But if staying here means working within 10 yards of you, frankly, I'd rather have a job wiping Saddam Hussein's arse.
Clearly the whole office knows there was an affair. And again, where's HR? Can no one come up and help this poor assistant? I know she's not young. She's 32, so she should know better. But come on, she appears to be incredibly junior
and incredibly distressed. Like when she yells to the office about him being a dick, HR should stand up and say, pause. Hugh Grant, you're a philanderer and a boss.
Are you sleeping with your assistant and someone from the American team?
Because that is a conflict of interest. Hugh, you leave. Bridget, you're also not good at your job, so you're fired for other reasons.
For sexting on our email system.
Put some clothes on, mate.
Go back to the US. What are you here for?
And you know who
Get
should
on
get
email.
the leadership job?
Who?
Petunia.
Oh,
the bossy.
Petunia is a feminist.
Bridget.
Yeah.
Bridget's boss, Petunia, and Bridget's like, oh, well, she's always so bossy. Well, you're not doing anything, mate. You're sending emails to the boss.
And Petunia's probably doing all the work because Hugh Grant is literally sexting when he's meant to be doing his job. I'd be pissed off if I was Petunia too.
And Petunia's going, why are we releasing books about motorcycles? Terrible content choice.
Exactly. We've got Salman Rushdie. Why are we making the most of him? So then she decides to go and work as a television reporter. And as often happens, you just go to a few interviews and the next thing you know, you're on the television. And she starts writing things in her diary like, I am broadcasting genius, which again, Yoda, I just need you to, I am a broadcasting, like something, but I am broadcasting genius. And then there's the famous scene with the fireman. I don't know what she's reporting on. That's never really important.
It's just a fun light story about a fireman who could be putting out fires, and instead he is part of this
wasting his time seeing
light entertainment news.
Yes, because it's part of, and everyone knows that you just go and do a few interviews and next thing you're live on television as a reporter, even though she has no skills or qualifications, just being sexually harassed at her last workplace. And she is up the pole and they say, we want you to come down the pole. I see the vision.
Yeah.
I see what the producer's
saying.
saying.
Come down the pole gracefully, straight into chat with this Mr. Fireman.
Yeah, easy. But she comes down.
The cameraman is confused, gets word from somebody else, probably a brunette, trying to sabotage her. And he says, no, you've come down too early. Go back up, go back up. So she's trying to climb up the pole, but she's live on television.
Stop! Climb back up. On you in 30 seconds.
Okay. So her boss says, no, you got to come down. She slides down, but to the camera's face. But then the strange thing is, so lands on the camera with her butt, stands up.
Break the camera.
Stands up, and they say,
we're out of time. Just wind her up.
Well, cut, that's all we've got time for. My question is, how are we ever going to have time to interview the fireman?
This whole segment.
This wasn't a segment.
No, it's terribly produced.
You simply didn't have the time.
And I am mad at that cameraman because he was in the wrong place. I mean, he's got to have known he was too close. He shouldn't have been doing that angle for Bridget. And I mean, that's on him. And all I can say is that I'm really glad this was pre-TikTok.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that would have ruined her life far more than it did in the film.
Yeah, it was more just like a passing moment.
Yeah.
But I do also feel sorry for that fireman because he told his family he was going to be on TV. Hey, I'm going to be on TV tonight.
Well,
it was cut. And you had 5 seconds.
Yeah, that was mortifying. Thoughts, comments?
Okay, it's very live TV in that
it's very live TV to be like, this will be a bit of fun.
Well, yeah, but also to be like, you're on, you're not.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand the confusion is what I'm saying.
Me too.
But then her butt does
But that's
land
on the camera guy. I don't know why he would be waiting there.
The miscommunication.
The miscommunication is horrific.
So she does stuff up on live TV, which I love. Something I love about Bridget Jones consistently is the low stakes.
Yeah.
There's no murder.
No one's sick.
No, the stakes are really low. It's her love life and to a lesser extent, her dwindling career.
Which I never really get behind.
And it's like she stuffs up and you're like, well, she wasn't that good anyway.
And how about when she gets sent to the court? She gets sent to the court to get a really important story. But again, and this is why this story is actually about addiction, because it is. It's about her addiction to alcohol and or smoking. At one point, she gives up alcohol. In the next scene, she's drinking and it's just not acknowledged. Okay, I don't understand.
But the reason she misses the moment this court case ends and the people walk out is because she was in the supermarket buying cigarettes.
We f***ed up utterly. Eleanor Heaney and Cafe Regani have come and gone.
Oh, God. I'll be sacked. Ooh. Did the others get interviews?
I don't know. I was having a slash.
Actually, nobody got interviews.
How do you know?
So I was defending him and I told him not to give any interviews.
But when she gets briefed on that story in the office, her boss in the newsroom says, you've got to jump on this case. And she's like, I don't want to be rude, but what case? And then he briefs her on it and she's like, that's really interesting. That is me at work.
Yeah, every day.
I come into work and it's like, it's my job to be across the news. I stand in the news meeting. We had a meeting earlier. Someone pitched something and I went, God, that's interesting. And that's the thing about news. Quite interesting.
And sometimes you don't think it's interesting, you learn more it is.
Yeah.
And what's great about this scene is that it makes sense that Mark Darcy's there.
Because he's a lawyer for the guy.
Yeah.
Who's doing
well done.
Social justice.
Well done. That, my world is making sense.
So
I'm still stuck at the book launch.
But Mark Darcy turning up and saving the day by offering Bridget an interview with both him and the person he was defending, and she comes across as likeable and light and quintessentially British, and I like that interview.
Yeah. So then, because she's in her like single era, which means that she's got to get skinny, she temporarily gives up alcohol for an afternoon and she goes on an exercise bike. She then has friends over for dinner, and that is when Colin/Mark turns up.
Because he needs to keep turning up unexpectedly to propel the plot forward.
The door was open. I came to congratulate the new face of British current affairs.
All right, here's a question.
How did he know where she lived?
How do you know where she lives?
Yeah, great question. Actually, quite creepy that he knows where she lives.
I was going to say, did you look it up in the phone book? And then I thought, I don't think so, because she would probably be renting, unless she owns her own place, which again, there are questions about an assistant in the publishing industry and how much they're making and a mortgage in London.
But he knocks on her door and has a copy of the paper with their interview and is like, hey, let's have a drink, which, so romantic, absolutely love.
Yeah. I just need probably a text first or a message, or maybe his mum asked Bridget's mum. I don't know. But he comes over, gives her shit for the food she made, which I actually thought was quite rude, which brings us to the fight scene.
Because what happens is that Mark Darcy has helped her make this terrible, terrible dinner for all her friends.
Blue suit.
And he has pretended to eat it. And then Daniel turns up because, again, the only way to move plot forward is to have people turn up unexpectedly in the same place. And so Daniel knocks on the door and he says, I'm sorry, it's her birthday, by the way, and I'm sorry I miss you.
I'm going now. Bye.
Mark, stay.
No, I don't think I will.
Well, listen, don't leave on my behalf.
He does have a great line. He says, oh, Bridget, you know me. I'm a terrible disaster with a posh voice and a bad character. And I'm like, Hugh, spot on, mate.
That was improv.
Stunning.
That was stunning. And then what we see is a fight scene between Mark and Daniel.
Who are you going for at the outset?
Mark.
Same.
All right, Cleaver, outside.
I'm sorry? Outside? Should I bring my dueling pistols or my sword?
I should have done this years ago.
Done what?
This.
Fight! Oh, quick! It's a real fight! Fight!
All right, I give up.
I've written here, it's the kicking for me. And we've talked about this prior, which is when people who don't know how to fight physically brawl, it's not long before the legs get involved, which anyone who knows anything about fighting says kickboxing is very different. You shouldn't kick, but it's an instinct. And so what we see is grown men with long legs kicking each other, which is icky. Like, it's a real ick.
It throws them off balance.
And the other thing they do is sort of slap each other's faces.
No, it's a smush. It's not a slap. It's a smushing of the features. It's really awkward.
Yeah.
It's not hot, but it makes it kind of hot.
Whose side are we on?
Mark's, obviously. He's never dumped Bridget, some naked American.
And he said he liked her just the way she is.
Yes, but he also nicked Daniel's fiancée and left him broken-hearted.
Good point. It's a very hard one to call.
Yeah, and the other thing I always think about fighting is just like, especially when you're, and again, I mean, these people are in their 30s and they're not young. I just keep thinking, all it takes is a hit on the head. And this is why
and you're gone.
And you're gone. And this is why I worry about fighting. And when we continue and everyone laughs and, oh, let's watch a fight. Let's
and we've got It's Raining Men playing in the background and we're breaking windows.
Yeah,
no, he gets a knock on the head. He dies. We've got a funeral, which is fine because we've got 4 weddings and a funeral, which is also a great film. Should we just clarify why Mark and Daniel are fighting?
Yep.
What?
Yep, we should.
So what's happened is that Daniel has told Bridget that Mark, they were friends at Cambridge.
Yeah.
And Mark slept with Daniel's fiancée.
Very sad story.
Not true.
We don't know that yet, though.
We don't know it.
We don't know that yet. We just know that they used to be very close friends and now they hate each other. And it seems like something is kind of aroused within Mark where he's getting very defensive of Bridget. And so they're sort of fighting over her, which is why Bridget thinks it's hot until someone's dead.
Until someone dies.
And you've got to explain it to their mum. So things kind of fall apart after that. She says no to Daniel. Of course, Mark walks away. He threw the last punch. We still don't know why. But what happens as the film goes on is that she learns from her mother that poor Mark, and that, you know, that Japanese lady that some would say racially vilified in the first 90 seconds of the film, turns out that it was the other way around and that Daniel slept with
his wife.
His wife.
Fiancé, wife.
You know his Japanese wife left him on Christmas Day? Cruel race.
Yes, but I'm not quite sure he didn't deserve it, actually.
She ran off with his best friend from Cambridge. Total scoundrel, apparently. Best man at his wedding.
Which everyone's been trying to work out why they broke up. Well, there it is, right? And Bridget goes, oh my goodness, I've been wrong this whole time.
And the thing is, Bridget realises she's wrong and it's time for the family/friend Christmas party again.
I thought you were going to say it's time for the family/friend car ride.
Oh.
Because what happens is we get exciting music. In this case, it is Ain't No Mountain High Enough. It is a fast car, very comically small, because Brits love a comically small car with too many people in it. And Bridget...
Notting Hill.
Notting Hill, exactly. It's the same scene. And so she starts driving because she's like, I've got to get to Mark.
Yeah, but the thing is that before she leaves the house, so she's learnt she was wrong about Mark. She's got to get him back. You know what she says to her mum? She's just woken up. She's found out this knowledge. Give me 5 minutes.
5 minutes is enough.
Take 15. Take 15 because your hair's messy.
No, it's all of it. And it's like if I'm going to tell someone I love them,
I'm probably going to take a minute.
I need 20. I actually need 20 because I need hair. Although she could do some of her makeup in the back, but she's in the back seat. She doesn't even have a mirror. So she does need a little bit more time. I mean, she looks fine when she gets here. Just put a clip in her hair.
Oh, no, the clip isn't right. The clip isn't right.
But he loves her just as she is. And so she gets there and finally is able to say,
you once said that you like me just as I am, and likewise. I mean, you wear stupid things your mum buys you. You're haughty and you always say the wrong thing in every situation. And I seriously believe that you should rethink the length of your sideburns. You're a nice man, and I like you.
At this point, I've written the soundtrack is good.
Okay, I was going to make a note for the soundtrack. I think this is the best soundtrack. I mean, Love Actually, obviously, brilliant. Notting Hill, brilliant.
But only in the final 20 minutes.
Wait, this?
Yeah. Is there any good music in the first half?
Are you kidding? No, you only started noticing it in the second half.
Okay.
It is brilliant. So my partner and I, for our first dance song, we were going to have Someone Like You by Van Morrison.
The last song.
And I actually didn't know why.
Yeah.
I was like, what is it? Where? And I thought it was in Love Actually, and it's not.
No.
And I'm thinking, why is it?
Bridge.
Why is it that this song means so much to me? But what it is that when he says to her, I like you just as you are, it goes into Someone Like You by Van Morrison. And I'm like, I'm also a messy blonde girl.
Who's just in a world up against shiny brunettes.
Yeah.
After really, it's an engagement party. It's an announcement.
Well, no. In a weird turn of events, so he's going to New York. It's announced that Mark is going to New York to be a senior partner, and Natasha is going with him.
Yeah.
And there's a weird line from Mark's dad that's like, soon she'll be something else in law. But it's not.
They're clearly engaged. They're engaged.
I don't know. I think he was hinting that they would get engaged.
No. They're engaged because then they start playing wedding bells. And she's like, oh, I didn't want anyone to know. You know how Esther Perel says that the thing that will derail, unpick any relationship is contempt? Mark feels nothing
but contempt.
But utter contempt for that woman. The way he snarls at her.
He doesn't like her.
He hates her. And it's not fair on Natasha.
And that's what blondes want to believe about how men feel towards brunettes.
And even the scene when Natasha clicks at him, blondes want to believe that brunettes click.
They're clickers. Yeah.
Come here, come on. A blonde would never.
Come on quick now, because a blonde is late themselves.
Exactly right. So then, of course, Bridget gets really sad because, she's lost Daniel, but now she's also lost Mark, who's going to New York with his very own brunette. And they start playing Wasn't Right. I was stupid.
Oh, beautiful.
For a while. And then tear. Single tear.
Beautiful.
And she changes her Bridget Jones's diary. She says, no, I'm going to call it Diary of Bridget Jones because she is a wordsmith. She works in publishing and she said, spinster and lunatic. Spinster and lunatic. Bitch, you're 33.
Yeah.
You're saying what you think about all 33-year-old women who happen to be single. You need to work on your alcoholism.
Yeah. No, as a priority.
Yeah. And so her friends come over and they want to take her to Paris. It'd be nice.
Actually lovely.
But Mark shows up.
I thought that you were in America.
Well, yes, I was, but I realised I'd forgotten something back home.
Which was?
Well, I realised I'd forgotten to kiss you goodbye. Do you mind?
Mark didn't go to New York because we never end up with the brunettes. No. Either they dump us or we dump them.
We also never end up in America.
No, we don't.
Because we're
America
British.
Is the enemy.
And we always have weird feelings towards America, but New York specifically.
Yes.
It's exactly the same
Tries
in
to
Love
change us.
Actually.
Yeah.
Someone goes to America, they're back by the end.
Can't trust Americans or America.
You can visit, but you can't move there.
No, it's betrayal. And she decides when Mark comes up to her apartment, she's not going to Paris, and she goes, I'm going to change my underpants. She had that traumatic incident with Daniel. I'm going to change them. I'm going to put on my sexy undies. And in that time, of course, he finds her diary.
Where she has said some rude things
about him.
That were all true.
About his wife. No wonder his wife left him. La, la, la. He then leaves the house, slams the door behind him. And Bridget goes, shit, and runs out. She's got runners and undies on. No woman should ever have... she had her runners with a 3/4 skirt. I would argue that worse than that is runners with leopard underpants.
Now, this is something I find interesting about fiction / just stories in general. This chaotic woman who doesn't wear pants in the snow doesn't exist. I don't think she exists. We're meant to buy into this idea that there's this woman she is actually quite good at what she does and she's very lovable. And she's doing well on the TV ever since.
I don't know. I feel like she doesn't appear to work in the second half of the film. She has one good interview.
True. I guess I'm asking, any woman who runs out onto the street with no pants on and just runners, I don't think it's seen as endearing.
Well, that's why the line of the film comes from what appears to be a homeless man yelling, crazy girl. Okay.
Good luck, crazy girl!
Yeah, you do look crazy and you're going to be arrested for indecent exposure. And she eventually does find Mark, who has bought her a new diary, and that's meant to be quite sweet.
Which is the best spin. It's a movie that makes me feel uncomplicatedly happy. I feel no complicated emotions.
It is. But
I'm
here's
just happy.
the thing. If you were going to get her a new diary, which is a great idea. Oh, look, could you not have yelled it out? Because she's run down the street in underpants.
Yeah.
She's got the police coming because of the indecent exposure. The homeless man's gone, no, f*** this. I've been arrested for indecent exposure 3 times, and she gets to run down the street with her underpants. But he couldn't have yelled out, I'm getting a new diary.
B2 Dubs, read your diary.
Getting you a new one, going to do something romantic.
But it's the confusion that
it's the confusion
that gives me the moment of her standing in the snow, him standing in the snow, them kissing, him wrapping strange half-naked body in his coat while Someone Like You by Van Morrison plays.
It brings absolute joy to all who watch.
Although, you do gotta ask about some of them issues throughout.
I mean, yes.
As...
Did it give an entire generation an eating disorder? Did it make everyone over 30 feel old? Yes.
Here's a question. Did you spot anyone, supporting cast, anyone in the workplace, anyone who wasn't white?
We have a gay man.
She exclusively uses homophobic slurs.
She does
so we've got
do that.
Racism, homophobia.
We've got ageism. Every man over the age of 50 is a literal predator, except for Salman Rushdie, who is a man who directs people to the toilet. It is time for charges and sentences. All right, I have a charge which came up early. There are a few elements of it. Okay. This charge came up really in the first 15 minutes, which is that this is a film about sexual harassment in the workplace. Okay?
Yeah.
That's it, really,
okay.
Is that it's a film entirely about the victimisation of, again, she's not a young woman, she's 32, so I suppose older woman, some would say geriatric women in the workplace, and there's just not enough compassion. My sentence is that they must refilm it, recreate Bridget Jones's Diary as a true crime series. Okay?
Love. I was thinking... Yes, you could go to all of that work, or you could simply keep the movie the same and just change the title to Bridget Jones's sexual harassment case. Because, I mean, that's what it is. That's the real story.
No, but you know how we're talking about like logic within a world, right? Okay, so people are going, right, Mark Darcy's lawyer, blah, blah, blah. She takes Danielle to court.
With Mark Darcy representing her. I just think it is perfect. And bitch gets a payout. And what happens when bitch gets a payout? And then Natasha defends Daniel.
Brilliant. The thing about her getting a payout, it explains the apartment, but also if she wants to have a baby, if she wants to have a wedding, if she wants to have all that, she doesn't need a man. She can literally be like, I don't know. I don't really know what egg freezing and stuff was like, but I'm sure you can have a baby on your own if you have enough money.
She can do a carry and throw like a baby shower. Yeah. And she's like, I'm not having a baby, just give me gifts.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a charge. We might need to workshop the sentence.
Okay.
If that's okay. My charge. Telling us that Bridget Jones was fat and old and that they were the worst things a woman could be.
Yeah.
When she was A, neither of those things, and B, it would be fine if she was.
Yes. Well said.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even sentence that? How do you sentence such a crime?
It's such a crime. Well, does this come back to my suggestion previously that the sentence is that this is a film about addiction? Alcohol, cigarettes.
I think, no, you're exactly right, because what needs to happen is that Bridget Jones needs to be
unhealthy, and that has nothing to do with her body, but those lungs. No wonder she fell off the bike.
No, Bridget Jones needs to be left alone, and she needs to be allowed to just live. Let the woman live without telling her that she's fat and old when she's neither of those things.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Cancelled. Follow us on Instagram at @twins_thoughts. This podcast is produced by Talissa Bazaz with audio editing by Thom Lyon. And we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, this is Claire in your ears. Before we finish today's show, I just wanted to do a bit of shameless self-promotion. I have a new podcast, and it is not based on a celebrity courtroom. It is a little bit more serious.
The podcast is called But Are You Happy? And I sit down with people who really appear to have it all. They're the type of people I follow on Instagram and feel a pang of jealousy towards. They're the ones who I think might low-key be rich. And they're the ones who are living their lives in a way I'm not always sure I'm living mine. And I ask them about failure and regret and jealousy and vulnerability and happiness. And the new podcast is dropped, so there's a link in the show notes. Give it a listen. I go full vulnerable, which is wild, and I speak to a bunch of high-profile Australians and I ask about regret and failure and success and vulnerability and basically get them to take their armour off and tell the truth so that we can connect. So give it a listen. There is a link in the show notes. But are you happy? And let me know what you think.